Hello, it is Sunday, March 20th, 2021. I'm your host, JJ Peters. Today in the pod, we have Deji Andrews from the podcast Baseball Connection. He comes on the podcast to discuss the MLB season preview, and just right around the corner, the MLB season will be starting, so can't wait for that. It was a great interview, so you'll love that one. Don't forget to check his channel out on YouTube. You can pretty much find his podcast anywhere podcasts are done. Of course, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and much more. Then, of course, as always, Michael Menser will come on the show to discuss NFL free agency, week one, round one of March Madness. Deshawn Watson is in trouble, and much more. Also, I'll put a link in the description down below to Deji Andrews' YouTube channel, and I'll also put a link down in the description where you can find his podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all that good stuff. And we also have two new segments today. We have the questions from Instagram and the highlight of the week. So can't wait for you to start. I hope you enjoy today's episode of the Sportstown Podcast. Before we start today's podcast, I'd like to give you a quick update on the bracket challenge so far hosted by our podcast. Now, remember, the winner will receive a $50 gift card. I'll either email or DM you if you've won to give all the information needed for you to receive the gift card to Amazon. All right, so currently in the top five, Ryan's best bracket leads at 240 points. After that, we have a three-way tie for second with Michael's bracket, which is the co-host, at 220, followed by Brent Larson 3 and Caitlin Larson 4. They all are tied at 220 points. Then we have a four-way tie for fifth place with ESPN fan 230091, JJ Curtis, Ashton's bracket, and my bracket are all tied at 210 points. So currently, Ryan's best bracket leads. And to everyone that is participating, we thank you for joining and have a fun time doing it. And also, good luck.
Here we go.
Smith peeks at the clock, 7 on the timer, makes his move. Step back, Jay, bullseye!
Alrighty, it's time for our weekly poll question, and you can vote on Instagram and Facebook at Sportstown Podcast or on Twitter at Sportstown Pod. And the question is there a chance that, or do you think Oral Roberts will make it to the Sweet 16 after upsetting Ohio State in the first round? And overwhelmingly, you guys said no, which I would agree with. All right, thanks for voting. You can vote again on Instagram and Facebook at Sportstown Podcast or on Twitter at Sportstown Pod. Now, on to the Sports Lightning Round. The Sports Lightning Round, your top sports stories in the world this week. Let's get you caught up with all the action. Some horrifying news. Ohio State guard E.J. Little stated he received death threats by Buckeye fans after losing to Oral Roberts in overtime on Friday night. Little posted some screenshots of Ohio State fans saying racial slurs and death threats on social media. One fan said he wanted to attack the 20-year-old if he saw his face. Another said to not show your face on Ohio State campus. They don't want you. The sophomore was shocked and stated, honestly, what did I do to deserve this? Am I human? Ohio State Athletic Director Gene Smith said that hate and derision have no place in Buckeye Nation or in civil society. He continued, if you cross the line, threaten our players, you will be hearing from the authorities. That I promise you. There is a good chance that Little will return and help Ohio State compete for a championship next season. Kenny Golladay, the best receiver in free agency, has officially signed with a new team. That team would be the New York Giants, first reported by Josina Anderson. Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network was the first to report the contract is worth $72 million over the next 4 seasons and $40 million is guaranteed. Teams such as the Bengals and Bears made a push but never offered him more than the Giants. But with Cincy and Chicago, we're looking to give Golladay a 1-year prove-it deal. Also reported by ESPN's Adam Schefter, the Ravens inquired about Golladay but never offered him anything. New York will finally have some weapons for 30-year quarterback Daniel Jones. This offseason, the New York Giants have brought in Kyle Rudolph and Kenny Golladay, plus the addition of 2018 Offensive Rookie of the Year Saquon Barkley coming back from an injury after missing most of last season. The Giants hope Kenny Galladay makes an impact for Daniel Jones, similar to the way Plexico Burress did for Eli Manning back in 2005. Philip Lindsay has officially signed with the Houston Texans. The deal is reportedly worth $3.25 million for one season. Lindsay and the Broncos decided to part ways on Thursday after Denver decided to rescind the transition tag on the former Colorado product. Lindsay was an undrafted free agent in 2018, picked up by the Denver Broncos. In his rookie season, he rushed for 1,037 yards and 9 TDs. He even earned Pro Bowl honors in his rookie season. However, his next 2 years in Denver were not fantastic as his rookie season. He did rush for over 1,000 yards in his second season, but only had 500 yards this season, and in his third and final season for the Super Bowl 50 champs. Lindsay joins the Houston Texans, who have a plethora of depth at the running back position. The Texans also signed former Heisman and Pro Bowler Mark Ingram. He signed a one-year deal right before free agency started. The team decided to keep David Johnson as well. Last season, Houston was the second worst rushing team statistically in the NFL. The Texans clearly want to get better at the running back position. Newly acquired Milwaukee Buck P.J. Tucker made his debut on Sunday night versus the Spurs. The 35-year-old forward was a part of a trade that sent him to Milwaukee. It's been a down year for Tucker, but is excited and ready to compete for a championship and a winning team with Milwaukee. Despite all the feuds over the year, Tucker and Antetokounmpo are becoming good friends and talk to each other after the move was made. Tucker was a part of the Rockets, who had lost 13 straight. However, he hasn't played since March 2nd because the Rockets were expecting to trade him before the March 25th deadline. Breaking news in the UFC. It's been reported that Charles Oliveira will fight Michael Chandler on May 15th for the lightweight belt at UFC 262. It was also reported that the event will take place at Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. On Friday night, Dana White posted on social media saying Khabib Nurmagomedov is officially retired and doesn't want any holdup in the division. Former interim lightweight champion Justin Gaethje was believed to get another chance for the title fight, but that did not come to fruition. Gaethje lost to Nurmagomedov in October for the lightweight belt at UFC 254 in Yas Island. Charles Oliveira is coming off a big win versus Tony Ferguson and is 31-8 all-time in his professional MMA record. Michael Chandler is 22-5 and recently knocked out Dan Hooker for his UFC debut. Michael Chandler was in the Bellator for some time and defended his title 3 times. There were multiple reports that said Poirier would get a chance for the title fight. However, Poirier most likely wants to get a trilogy with Conor McGregor. So does McGregor, who at one time was the former lightweight and featherweight champion. It has been reported that the committee for the Tokyo Olympics in 2021 will not allow spectators from outside the country Japan. According to International Olympic Committee and the Tokyo 2020 Organizing Committee, who had announced that tourists will not be allowed inside the country of Japan until later in the fall. The decision was made a few weeks before the Olympic Committee decided not to have fans who were not from Japan. The Olympics, are scheduled to take place on July 23rd through August 8th. Following the 2021 Olympics, the Paraplegic Olympics will take place on August 24th through September 5th. The committee hopes the Olympics are a safe environment and nothing goes wrong for one of the biggest sporting events in the world. Chris Carson is staying in Seattle. A former Oklahoma product re-signed with the Seahawks for 2 years. That's worth up to $4.265 million. The deal was first reported by NFL Network's Tom Pelissero. Carson was drafted in the 7th round in 2017 and has 2 1,000-yard campaigns. According to Pro Football Talk, Carson was ranked 79th best free agent. In his career, Carson has rushed for 3,270 yards and 21 TDs. According to multiple reports, quarterback Russell Wilson worked with Carson to have him stay as a Seahawk. Last season, the Seahawks finished 12-4, but lost to the Rams in the wild card round. The NFL has taken away a 2022 6th-round draft pick from the New Orleans Saints. The Saints will be fined $800,000 for disobeying the COVID violation rules set by the NFL before the season started last year. The Las Vegas Raiders will also be fined $700,000, but at the time of this recording, have not lost a draft pick. Other teams that had COVID outbreaks were the Patriots, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Titans, and the Saints. Some of the rules the Saints disobeyed during the season was celebrating a win in Week 9 with no mask on. Last season, the Saints finished 12-4 and lost in the division round versus the eventual Super Bowl champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. After round 3 at the Honda Classic, Mac Jones leads the field. Jones leads with a score of 10 under par and has a 3-shot lead over Aaron Wise and J.B. Holmes. Cameron Triangle, C.T. Pan, and Sam Ryder are all tied at 4th place with a score of 6 under par. Number one ranked golfer in the world, Dustin Johnson, is in 48th place at 1 under par. The second ranked golfer in the world, Jon Rahm, had a tough day on Saturday and is currently in 8th place with a score of 8 under par. The winner of this event will have to have some brilliance to capture the Honda Classic. And last but not least, we've got some bad news to report for this year's NCAA tournament. The game schedule between Oregon and VCU has been declared a no contest. The Ducks will advance to play Iowa on Monday. VCU had more than a few members of their program test positive for COVID-19. This is the first game that there has been canceled for this year's March Madness. We here at the Sports Down Podcast hope that no more games in the NCAA tournament are canceled because of the coronavirus. With Oregon advancing to the next round, 4 of the 5 Pac-12 teams have advanced to the next round of 32. Despite it being a tough year for the Pac-12 in sports, this is a great news for a conference that has struggled the last few years in basketball. And by Deji Andrews of Baseball Connections. You can check out his podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and much more. How's it going, Deji?
Doing well. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm super excited. You know, baseball season it's hard to believe that it's already here, or in a few weeks here. And of course, it feels like just yesterday that the Kevin Cash took out Blake Snell in Game 6 of the World Series and choked it away. I'm excited. How excited are you for the baseball season?
I'm super excited. I mean, I felt like last year, it was good that we got some season, with 60 games and all, but I feel like we got robbed, at least compared to other sports, because we had, the pandemic kick in, towards the end of spring training. So we lost, most of the summer. We started the season in like late July, and then end of September, the season ends, postseason comes around. Before you know it, the World Series is over. It's like, we were in and out of baseball. It's just like, I feel like it's been this long off season, even though there was like a tiny sliver of games in between. I'm ready for the full 162 again.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of disappointing the way it happened, and plus with the arguing back and forth between the owners, commissioner, and players, and they couldn't get on the same page. So hopefully after this season, because I want to say the CBA is up after this season, so that's not exactly great, but hopefully they can smooth everything out. So let's start off right away. Seems like the Dodgers are going to be another favorite to win it this year. Is there anybody that could dethrone them or has the best chance to take down the champs?
I mean, the answer is no. No, nobody has a chance to beat the Dodgers, in my opinion. But I think some teams will put up a fight. San Diego will put up a fight. I mean, we were all kind of, taken aback by San Diego getting Darvish and then Snell within the span of 24 hours. That's great and all, but I think the Padres are still about 2 years away from being really good. So, I mean, in the NL West, the Padres are their only real competitors, so they're going to win the division again. Looking at the rest of the National League, who else could compete with them? The Mets? I don't know. And then on the American League side, yes, you have some juggernauts there. Obviously, the Yankees are going to be good. Tampa Bay is going to be good. But the Dodgers are just too deep. Getting Trevor Bauer and then, another year of an older roster, because they have a lot of young players. Bellinger is young, so an older, better Cody Bellinger, Walker Buehler taking a step forward. It's hard to beat that team. I don't see anyone beating LA this year.
Speaking of the Yankees, it seems like forever the last time they went to the World Series. Do you think this season they can finally break through and play in the Fall Classic this season?
I don't know. It's tough. It's really tough. The Tampa Bay Rays match up really well with the Yankees. They always have. And with New York, it always comes down to health of their stars, namely Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. Mostly Aaron Judge, because he has more value on the defensive side of the ball as well. If they can stay healthy, if Judge and Stanton can stay healthy, then yes, I can definitely expect to see the Yankees come out of the American League. But if those guys are banged up again, I'll say Tampa Bay wins it again.
The Rays had an interesting offseason. Of course, they had a tough way to lose in the World Series against the Dodgers last October. Why did they trade Blake Snell, and do you think the Rays will be able to replace the former Cy Young Award winner?
Yeah. So they traded Blake Snell because the Rays don't like to pay anyone. They don't like to do this. They've done it before, and it was so predictable that they would trade Blake Snell. They did it with David Price in the past. To a lesser extent, they did it with James Shields. They're not afraid to let go of someone who's about to cost them a lot of money. They had given Snell an extension. I believe he was making around $10 million a year, which for the Rays is like an absurd amount of money. And they've proven time and time again that they can do it with, I mean, at least from the outside looking in, it looks like a makeshift roster. But what they do is they get a bunch of specialists. They'll get a lefty specialist here. They get like a righty specialist there. They get like these utility players, and they'll just piece together 27 outs from the pitching side. They'll piece together base runners on the offensive side. So I'm not surprised that they traded Snell. The reason they did it is because of money. They're a small market team. I put that in air quotes because we know that these teams really can afford more if they wanted to. And as far as do I think that he can be replaced, I definitely do. I definitely do. It's the same thing with the Cleveland Indians. Cleveland Indians operate the same way. They've had a lot of really good players come through and they've traded, but they've been able to replace them, especially on the pitching side. These teams have such good player development that they're not afraid to let go of a Blake Snell or back in the day, Chris Archer, or like I said, David Price, James Shields, guys like that. They'll just replace them with a Tyler Glass now, go out and get distressed assets like a Rich Hill or who's the other person they got? The Rays got someone else. It's slipping my mind. They got another pitcher this year besides Rich Hill, like a veteran that will fill in for, fill the shoes that Blake Snell left. So I think they'll be fine.
It's been an interesting offseason, but I feel like the Dodgers won that too after not really losing anybody and adding Trevor Bauer, the recent NL Cy Young Award winner. What did you think of that pickup, and how well do you think Trevor Bauer will do in his first season in LA?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was the rich get richer. That was the first thing that crossed my mind once they signed Trevor Bauer. I don't like to overreact to a lot of these things. I try to zoom out, take a big picture glance at things. Trevor Bauer on his career is he's not average, but his career numbers, he's up in the high threes for his ERA. His FIP is around there. He's had flashes of brilliance, obviously last year with the Cy Young. And then, a couple years back, he was really good. But on average, he's just a little bit better than average. I think the Dodgers obviously have enough money to gamble. It's not really that much of a gamble. I mean, sure, they'll pay him an absurd amount of money this year and next year, but they will be able to wash their hands of this if he doesn't pitch well. Like if he just becomes a pretty mediocre pitcher, he'll be gone before they know it. So I think this was a very good pickup by them because at worst, he's like their fourth starter. That's like worst case scenario. And that's a pretty good luxury considering how good Trevor Bauer can be.
Yeah, and on top of that, they get back David Price after he opted out last year, and then that Dodgers pitching staff looks stacked. Let's continue with the offseason. The Mets made some moves. That was kind of interesting because you normally don't see the Mets being aggressive. They added Francisco Lindor. What do you think of their chances of doing well this season?
I like the Mets a lot. I like them. I think they will do well. I think they'll have to get a wild card spot because I still think the Braves will win the NL East, at least if everything stays as it is. But I'm not afraid to say that I believe in the Mets. I feel like a lot of people see the Mets as, the laughing stock of the league. I mean, I understand they've had some really some weird episodes and off the field issues, Cespedes and all these things over the past few years, but they made some legitimate moves this year. I mean, don't forget Trevor May in the bullpen, who they went out and got. That's a very underrated signing. They went out and got Lindor, like you mentioned, James McCann. Like you mentioned, they got some depth in their outfield. They have some players who have taken the next step. And like I keep talking about these young players who are ascending, like Dom Smith, of course, Pete Alonso, and then obviously the best pitcher in baseball, in my opinion, Jacob deGrom. So I think the Mets will be good this year. I'm not going to sleep on them. I'm not going to be one of the people who write them off. I expect them to be in the postseason this year.
Let's continue with the offseason with one more question here. I'm a big Cardinals fan, and they acquired one of the best third basemen in the league, Nolan Arenado from the Rockies. But I got to ask, the Rockies pretty much gave up Arenado for a bunch of minor league prospects. Basically what happened is they pretty much gave everything they gave Nolan Arenado to the Cardinals for pretty much really for free. And plus they gave him $50 million on top of that. The Rockies were thinking about with that.
I'm still scratching my head on that one. I mean, I would have understood if they had just done the prospects without sending the cash to St. Louis, because then it would just look like a salary dump. Okay, sure, we're dumping his salary, trying to save some money. But the fact they're eating a pretty solid chunk of his salary, I don't know. It could have been just the fact that I remember about a year ago, there were a lot of rumors that Arenado was upset with the front office in Colorado because they told him before he signed his extension, hey, we're going to build around you, we're going to contend and everything. But then they didn't make moves. So they were, a bottom dweller and they were not contending. So he wasn't happy with that. He wasn't happy with the way the front office, at least he believes, they lied to him. So it could have something to do with that there was some bad blood and they just wanted to part ways. But I agree, that's a head scratching move. I'm not too sure what the exact details were.
So we all know Mike Trout is the best player in baseball right now, but it seems like the Angels can never really even get close to even making the postseason. Do you think they finally this season break through and at least win a playoff series?
No, I don't. It's a bummer because I mean we all want to see Trout in the playoffs, but pitching is what wins in this game. Pitching is what wins in this game, and that's something the Angels don't have yet. I mean, Ohtani's good when he's healthy, but even then again, I feel like he still hasn't scratched his potential because he's doing this whole two-way thing. He could be a really, really good pitcher if he just focused on pitching. He'd be a really, really good hitter if he just focused on hitting. But because he's doing both, there's only so much a pro athlete can do. I mean, it's tough. So they have him, Griffin Canning's out there. I may be forgetting someone, but they don't really have anyone that's going to put them over the top, especially when you look at the AL West with Oakland and Houston. Those are legitimate teams like that you're going to be playing each of them 17 times a year. They don't have enough pitching to get it done, in my opinion.
Speaking of pitching, other than the Dodgers, because I think the Dodgers have probably the best pitching staff right now, but who else do you think has a really good pitching staff this season that could carry up and all the way to the postseason into the Fall Classic?
Yeah, that's a good question. The Atlanta Braves. I think the Braves pitching staff is really good. So they don't even have Mike Soroka right now, but he's supposed to be due back pretty soon. I think early summer. But even without him, you have Max Fried, you have Ian Anderson, the young kid who has just been awesome and was great in the postseason. You have those two. They went out and they got a veteran. I want to say Charlie Morton. I think it was Charlie Morton. They went out and got on a 1-year deal. But they have a lot of really good young pitchers. I haven't even mentioned Bryce Wilson yet. I haven't even mentioned Kyle Wright. But I think the Braves have shown to be the most consistent because it's basically the same core of guys they've had for the last couple of years. But because those guys came up so young, they just continue to get better. And they're like still like Max Fried is probably 25 years old, and he was outstanding in the postseason. So once they get Soroka back, I think that three-headed monster of Soroka, Fried, and Ian Anderson is going to be amazing. So that's one pitching staff. Another pitching staff I think is really good is the Mets. When you have Syndergaard back, we'll have DeGrom, Stroman, and Syndergaard as they're big three. They're three-headed monster. That's going to be a really good rotation as well.
Spring training is happening right now. I haven't watched much of it. I've kind of looked at it a little bit, but I haven't really paid much attention to it. Is there anything so far in spring training that you think that would do you think there's anything in spring training happening right now that has been big that could maybe carry into the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, I've caught some of it here and there. I wouldn't really. There haven't been any like big standouts. Like sometimes there's going to be like a rookie who just tears the cover off the ball. There have just been some rumors that, for example, Bobby Witt Jr. At Royals camp, he's turning a lot of heads over there. He was their first round pick a couple years ago, number 2 overall. And they're thinking he might have a chance to break camp with the big league team. Just little things like that. I wouldn't say there have been any like headlines or anyone like making any big splashes yet, but just some prospects who were like on the cusp who might make the opening day roster. We saw this happen with Fernando Tatis Jr. in 2019. There were rumors very similar to what we're hearing now with Bobby Witt, like, oh, can he break camp? Will he not? Will they manipulate his service time? They decided to bring him up, and that definitely paid dividends. And he took the baseball world by storm. And obviously, they rewarded him with this extension now, so they don't have to worry about service time.
Speaking of the Padres, they have so much now invested in that infield. Um, and you already said that the Dodgers are still the better team. But what do you think the Dodgers need to do, or not the Dodgers? What do you think the Padres need to do in order to finally beat the Dodgers and advance to the World Series?
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to pitching. So when you compare those lineups, I mean, LA might have a slight edge, but San Diego's right there with them. It's just that the depth of the not just the starting staff, the bullpen on LA side, it's just so deep. I mean, you have a guy like Julio Urias, who would, if he was like, if you put him on the Padres, he'd be one of their best starters. And he's like probably coming out of the pen for the Dodgers. So I think it's just pitching. Yes, you have Yu Darvish, who's awesome. You have him. You have Blake Snell, who's awesome as well. But then after that, it does kind of fall off a little bit. Chris Paddock is there, but then they had Mike Clevenger get hurt. He's going to be out for the year. Whereas, LA, they'll throw Dustin May at you, Tony Gonsolin. This is at the back of the rotation. It's just pitching.
Tony La Russa now is back after being gone for 10 years. He's now back. He's now with the White Sox. Do you think that was a smart hire, and how well do you think he does in his first year with the White Sox?
That's a good question, man. I was shocked by this signing. I was very taken aback. I didn't, nor do I think he's going to gel with this new school style of play. I mean, you have a guy who's in his 70s. He's like in his 70s, and he's obviously, you know, managed a lot. He has a lot of experience, and that's worth something. But the way the game is played now is so different than it was even a decade ago when he managed the Cardinals. So I don't know what the White Sox brass was thinking when they hired him. I'm sure, like, obviously he's a Hall of Famer, but you have a guy like Tim Anderson who's bat flipping all the time. You have all these young kids, Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez. These guys just like to have fun with the game. I don't know how he's going to approach that. I mean, if he's smart, in my opinion, he's just going to let the kids do what they do because they were good last year without him. They were good last year without him. So, it's kind of one of those if it ain't broke, don't fix it situations. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a watch point.
Yeah, it doesn't really help that he had a DUI right afterwards. It was reported that he was pulled over recently, and that was not I don't think it was a great look, but we'll see what happens. Um, do you have a prediction for who wins the NL and AL MVP this season?
Wow. That's a good one because I mean, if you would told me to guess last year, I definitely wouldn't have guessed Jose Abreu, and honestly, probably wouldn't have guessed Freddie Freeman either. So I will give you a prediction. I will say in the American League, we'll have Mike Trout back at it. I think he's going to reclaim what's his. I mean, a down year for Mike Trout is like other guys like career years. Last year he still had a great year, but he wasn't like in the top few votes for MVP. But I think Mike Trout will win the AL MVP this year because I think he'll be healthy. In the National League, and that's tough. Freeman won it last year. It has to be on a winning team. Someone on a winning team, kind of. I mean, I mentioned Mike Trout, but he's just Mike Trout. He gets a pass. In the National League, it's gonna be someone. Could be someone in LA. Yeah, I mean, I'll go with Mookie Betts. I'll go with Mookie Betts there because I think he'll put together. I mean, he had some good numbers last year, and I mean, he's won it before in recent years, and he's still. I mean, he's at the top of his game. So I'll go with Trout in the American League, Betts in the National League.
Speaking of Mookie Betts, we all know Mike Trout is one and Mookie Betts is number two for the top baseball players all around in the bigs. Who do you think after that is the next best player after Mookie Betts?
Yeah, ooh, yeah. This is a controversial topic. All around player, I would say Ronald Acuna Jr. That's what I would say. I would say Ronald Acuna. I would put Fernando Tatis right there. I would say 1, Trout, 2, Betts, Acuna 3, Tatis 4, and then Soto 5. I think Soto is the best hitter. Actually, like I think he's the second best hitter in the game after Trout. But all around player, Ronald Acuna Jr. If he's healthy, I think we could see him do 40-40.
Where would you put Christian Yelich in your ranking? Because I think a lot of people have him somewhere in the top 10. I think he's good, but I don't know. It seems like he's pretty good, but it seems like he's kind of underrated. He won the MVP a few years ago. Where would you rank him there in the somewhere in? Or I'm assuming it's somewhere in the top 10, but
Yeah, he'd be my top 10. But I mean, he did take a step back last year, which was a bit of a head scratcher. I'm not really sure what happened there, but that dude is legit. Now, he can hit. He's one of those guys who always could hit even early in his career, but the power came later. Obviously going to Miller Park helps as a left-handed hitter, but the power came later. So that's always a good sign. Someone who has the hit tool, and the power just comes as you mature and get stronger and get older. So I think he'll rebound. I would put him in the top 10, probably in the bottom half of the top 10, down there. But I think he's a top 10 player.
You just mentioned Tatistis. Do you think he's the best shortstop in the game right now?
Oh man, I would still give it to Francisco Lindor. No, so I would still give it to Francisco Lindor for now. For now, but he's something special. But I would say Francisco Lindor is the best shortstop in the game.
I know it's pretty early right now, but do you have a prediction for all of the divisions? Who takes the crown for those, or for all the divisions in baseball? Do you have all the winners, or could you predict them?
Sure. I mean, yeah. My guesses would be the American League East. I'd go with the Rays. In the AL Central, I'd go with the Twins. In the AL West, I'll go with Oakland. Very similar to what we've been seeing. In the National League East, I'll go with the Braves. In the National League Central, it's tough, but I'll go with the Cardinals. I'll go with the Cardinals. And then in the NL West, it's going to be the Dodgers for sure.
Okay. Do you have a World Series prediction?
Yeah, I think LA will repeat. But in the American League, I mean, I don't want to just say it's going to be a repeat of the Rays because, I mean, it's a full 162 now. So if you think of deep teams, I mean, you could have a wild card team win it. Like, that's the problem. Like a team like Oakland, I want so badly for Oakland to be good, like in the postseason. They're a great regular season team. They just don't have the depth. To win in the postseason, you need depth. So I would not put Oakland in that conversation. I would say it would be an American League East team. So it would be the Yankees or the Rays coming out of the American League, one of those two teams.
I know this is kind of a random question. Not a lot of people are talking about it, but I'm a Cardinals fan, of course. I've mentioned that, but it seems like the Cubs are basically did a fire sale this offseason. They let a lot of players go. I'm probably a little biased. I'm a little happy about that, but why do you think they're just basically doing a fire sale and trying to rebuild again after being so good just a few years ago?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's one of those things where a team misses their window. So they were good in 2016, won the World Series and everything. But then the following couple years, they just kind of stagnated. Chris Bryant just kind of floundered, hasn't really been the same player over the last couple years. I know he's been fighting some injuries. And it's just been one of those weird things. They've been surpassed by other teams. So they did a fire sale. I really thought that they would go ahead and trade Chris Bryant because why would you go ahead and trade one of the best pitchers in the game in Yu Darvish and then just stop? Like you really expect to compete for a division title with Kyle Hendricks as your ace, and stuff like that. Zach Davies, who they went and got from Milwaukee. So, okay, if you're going to get rid of Darvish, go ahead and clean house, get better prospects, go ahead and, get better prospects in exchange for Javier Baez and Rizzo and Bryant, but they didn't do that. So they kind of did a fire sale, but it was like a half baked. I think what they're trying to do, I think they're just kind of trying to show fans like, oh, don't quit on us yet, sell some tickets and all that. Maybe by the trade deadline, we'll start seeing them get rid of those position players.
Another team that I kind of want to look at is the Houston Astros. They took the Rays all the way to 7 games after having somewhat of a disappointing season in the ALCS. How well do you think the Astros will be this season? And is there any chance that Jose Altuve can get back to what he was?
I think the Stros, I think they'll be okay. They'll be okay. I think they can still make the playoffs just as they did last year. But the problem is going to be the pitching. Zach Greinke and Lance McCullers are there, but not having Verlander is obviously a huge pain point for them. So I think they'll be fine. They could sneak in as like a second wild card or something, but they're not going to do a whole lot past that. Altuve, I don't think he's going to be the same MVP batting champion Altuve, but he can definitely be an all-star still. I can still see him being an all-star.
Do you think losing George Springer will be will have a huge impact with the Astros this season?
Um, Not that I don't think it's gonna be that big of an impact. The reason I say that is because the guys they have in his place, they have young outfielders who are good. They have Kyle Tucker, who was good last year, and I think he's like 23 years old. He's going to continue to get better. Jordan Alvarez missed last year, health and safety reasons. He's going to be back this year. He's going to be fine. They brought back Michael Brantley. So I think when you take the net difference as far as what how many wins above replacement their outfield produces, it's going to be pretty similar to last year.
All right. Before we wrap up the interview, is there anything else you want to talk about your podcast?
I mean, yeah, Baseball Connection. We're a daily baseball podcast. As you mentioned, you can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. But yeah, just the the main thing I can say is if you have someone who's interested in something like that and listening to a little bit of baseball every day, just send them my way, and Baseball Connection would be a one-stop shop for them.
All right. So you've been at it for how many years? We were talking earlier, and you said you had been doing it for a while. So how many years have you been doing it for?
Yeah, so I've been doing Baseball Connection for almost 6 years now. I started it back in 2015. First, I started just with doing YouTube videos and things like that, but then I decided to make it a podcast just so it was a little easier to make kind of pump out content and make more consistent content. So now I just have daily podcasts, daily episodes, which you can easily listen to. Whereas before, like people had to log into YouTube. You can still listen to me on YouTube. It's just not in video format. So yeah, that was 6 years ago when I started the the channel overall. But the daily podcast has been about 2 years.
Okay. That's a great. That's very interesting. I'll definitely be listening, and I'll tell all my friends and all the people that I know about Baseball Connections. I have a lot of baseball friends, so that's great. All right. Thanks for talking with us, and as always, enjoy the baseball season. Can't wait.
Thanks. Same to you.
Before we dive into some more awesome sports topics, don't forget to subscribe, like, leave a comment, and hit the bell for notifications. All right, round one of the NCAA tournament, or I should say day one of Friday, was crazy. Of course, Ohio State goes down, Tennessee goes down, North Texas beats Purdue. Crazy games this week. Of course, then Wisconsin blows out North Carolina. That was shocking. Michael, what did you think of first day of March Madness?
I couldn't believe Ohio State lost.
I mean, the final score was 75-72 in overtime. Oral Roberts' first ever win in an NCAA tournament since 1974. Can you believe that, Mike?
No, I can't. That's crazy.
And, of course, my bracket is busted. It also doesn't help when North Texas beats Purdue and Tennessee gets beaten. I think I had Tennessee at least going to the Sweet 16. How's your bracket, Michael?
Well, obviously Ohio State. I think I had Virginia Tech winning and they lost, and then Tennessee. I think those are the only three losses I have.
Well, usually after round one, I usually only have 2 or 3 losses, but I think I at least have 4. This was just not. I don't think this is going to be a good year. However, again, if you guys signed up for the bracket challenge hosted by our podcast, you can go check that out. Anyways, let's go back to the Ohio State Oral Roberts game. I mean, did you see a scenario, or could you see a scenario where Oral Roberts runs the table and goes all the way to the Final Four?
I don't think so. I think uh they might be able to make it to the Elite Eight just because I think there's a chance it could be Florida, and then after that, I don't know who they'd play, but yeah, I could see them maybe going to the Elite Eight at the uh most, but I don't think they're going to make it to the Final Four.
I mean, let's be honest. I don't even know if they'll go to the next round. I'll have to see who they play next. But I mean, Oral Roberts, great story, great run. I just think it's probably going to end on Sunday. However, that could change. But I'm assuming it all end on Sunday. But what was your analysis of the game, Michael, when you were watching Ohio State get beat by Oral Roberts?
Well, first off, I think I'm pretty sure they play Florida, and I think that if they can beat Ohio State, Florida is definitely a very winnable game for them. So, but I don't know how far they're going to make it past that. For the actual game itself, I thought Ohio State didn't really shoot the ball well. PJ Washington didn't play good at all. I think that was a big thing. And then yeah, they just shot. Oral Roberts just outplayed them, I think.
Do you think Ohio State was outcoached in the game versus Oral Roberts?
Yeah, I think so. I think I don't know if it was just me, but I think Oral Roberts kind of played harder than Ohio State did throughout the game.
Well, I mean, yeah, Oral Roberts was probably more hungrier, and of course, Ohio State at one time could have been a number or was predicted to be a number 1 seed. So that's a huge upset. Not many 15 seeds beat 2 seeds, but it's happened more than the 16 seed being the number 1 seed. But it's just crazy. Get ready for a lot of upsets this year, and there's a good chance we could have 2 Cinderella teams in the Final Four. Michael, Tennessee takes on can't. Oh yeah, Tennessee ends up losing. What happened to the Volunteers on Friday?
I don't know. I think Oregon State was just kind of a little bit under the radar, and I think they kind of underestimated them. And it's crazy that Oregon State didn't really start off that year that good, but since they won the Pac-12 championship, I mean they've been on a tear recently. So
Well, I mean, the Pac-12 has been criticized all year for how poorly the conference is in just any type of sport. But I mean, for Oregon State to go out and beat Tennessee, that's huge. I mean, the SEC. I mean, Tennessee took on, or well, Tennessee was in the SEC where Alabama dominated. There was no really dominating team in the Pac-12. So for Oregon State to win, that's a huge day for the Pac-12. And I mean, if you're a Pac-12 fan, you got to be excited for Oregon State because again, this helps them tremendously. Could you see a scenario where Oregon State runs the table?
uh yeah, I think they could probably make it to the next round. I'm not sure about after that though.
Um, it's really crazy. Now I was not able to watch the Oregon State and Tennessee game. I was able to watch some of the highlights, but it's crazy to see how a team like Tennessee can fall to an Oregon State team. I mean, this Oregon State team, Tennessee was a lot better. I'll just say that. So for them to lose, and at one time Tennessee was considered to be in the SEC champions. So for Tennessee to get beat by Oregon State in the first round is not a good look, especially for the SEC. Michael, you had some other games you wanted to talk about.
Uh, the Oklahoma State Liberty game I thought was really close. Cade Cunningham really didn't play that good, and I kind of was getting worried about that, but they ended up winning. So
Yeah, I caught that game as well, and at first I was really sweating him because I'm like, "Are you serious? Is Liberty really going to go out and beat Oregon State?" I know Liberty's really tough, but yeah, Cade Cunningham didn't play great, but Oklahoma State was still able to advance to the next round. Um, I mean, what did you think about that game, Mike? Why do you think Oklahoma State struggled with Liberty?
well, I think Liberty was also a pretty good team, and I think they're kind of would have been a good sleeper pick too, just because I think they're better than a lot of people give them credit for. And then I think Oklahoma State really they're a good team, don't get me wrong, but I think they really depend on Cade Cunningham to play good, I think.
You think Liberty was seated too low?
Uh, I think I can maybe Dice I would have put them personally as like an 11 seed. I don't think that they're any higher than that.
Another game that happened earlier, Georgia Tech ends up holding on to beat, or no, excuse me, Loyal Chicago ends up going on to beat Georgia Tech. Did you expect Loyal Chicago to win or get beat by the ACC champions?
I had them winning in my bracket.
Yeah, I mean, I had Loyal Chicago as well. They had a great season, Missouri Valley Conference champions. I think I have them going to the Sweet 16. I think, but we'll see what ends up happening. What was your favorite moment from day one of March Madness?
My favorite moment would probably have to be that Ohio State and Oral game, just because that was the one game I got to catch. So, and yeah, it was a crazy game.
I mean, that wouldn't have been fun for me. I know you're a big Iowa fan, so that's kind of fun to watch Ohio State lose. But I mean, my bracket is completely busted with that loss. And I mean, if someone had Oral Roberts beating Ohio State, I doubt that was their main bracket. I cannot believe that if someone really had for their main bracket at Oral Roberts winning. Um, all right, so on to tomorrow. Gonzaga teams like Gonzaga, Iowa play. Could you see any upsets happening for tomorrow?
I'd have to look at the list before, but no. I do think that if Iowa does win, I don't think they're going to make it to the second round. I think in my bracket, I had them losing to Oregon in the second round.
Wow. So you don't think Iowa's a number 2 seed is going to be able to advance to at least to the Elite Eight?
Listen, as an Iowa fan, I just don't trust them.
Well, I mean, I think I have them going to the Sweet 16 and losing to Kansas, but I mean, I could see Iowa making it right now. They haven't made the Final Four since 1980, so that's not a great look. But I mean, I don't know. I think they're going to at least beat Oregon and go to the Sweet 16, but I don't know. We'll see. I think Luka Garza, though, that doesn't hurt his chances for College Player of the Year. All right, some bad news for the Texans fan. Deshawn Watson is in trouble and could be suspended for some time. He was recently evicted, or not evicted. He was alleged of some sexual misconduct by, now it looks like it's 12 women coming out against him. What did you think of that, Michael, and how bad do you think this could end up being?
I think it could be really bad for Deshaun Watson, especially if it all comes out true. I think, like I said, he's definitely going to peck this year because he's probably not going to get traded. And yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good look at all for Deshaun Watson, especially of what happened recently. And, Deshaun Watson now wants out of Houston. He's wanted out for some time. And all of a sudden, this comes out. A bunch of teams were interested in making the move. And now it looks like not as many teams are going to be interested in Deshaun Watson because of this. It's just not a good look. In my opinion, I don't think as many teams are going to be wanting to make a move for Deshaun Watson. Do you expect Deshaun Watson to be traded before the draft?
I don't think so. No, I think with all this going on, I just think that it's going to be really hard for them to get traded.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I could see him getting traded, just not this year, and especially with what's happening now, it's going to be hard to see if he doesn't getting moved. What do you think the Texans do if he does get suspended for anywhere between 6 to 12 games, Michael?
We're going to have to find a replacement, that's for sure.
Well, yesterday you were mentioning that they might draft a quarterback in the second round. Do you think they'll still do that?
I think they'll either, if they can't get a quarterback in free agency, yeah. Otherwise, I think they're going to try and get some weapons in that second round.
Yeah, I could expect them to do that. I mean, that's the ideal position of what they would do. However, with how the way the Texans run, I don't know if they'll end up drafting a receiver. They'll probably draft some type of defensive player. Now, recently they went out in free agency and picked up Phillip Lindsay and Mark Ingram, so the running game is going to be better than it was last year. And David Johnson is returning, so I could assume the Texans will end up going that way. But you never know with what Houston has been doing. And to be honest with you, Houston's in a big mess right now, and it adds insult to injury to see what's happening with Deshaun Watson right now. If this is true of what he did, do you think he gets suspended and how long?
Well, I definitely think he's going to get suspended. Probably, I think he'll get a good suspension of like maybe 4 to 8 weeks.
I would probably agree with you. You know what? I'm going to say he gets suspended a little longer. I would say anywhere between 8 to 12 games. Originally, I thought maybe 4 to 6, but if you're looking at all the details, he's probably going to get suspended for anywhere between 8 to 12 weeks. It's just not a good situation of what he did or what he's getting alleged. And it looks like there's more and more women every day. I think there's up to 12 women now. So it's not a good look for Deshaun Watson. We'll see what ends up happening there. Before we switch gears to free agency, what do you think the Texans finish in the 2021 season?
Not good. I think maybe like 3-12.
Okay.
Or not 3-13, I meant.
Well, I mean, it depends if they play 17 games this season, because I think they're going to play 17 games. Just the question is, because they just recently got the TV contracts out of the way, so I'm expecting they'll end up playing 17 games this year. So I would probably imagine the Texans go 5-12 or 6-11, especially if they don't have Deshaun Watson half the season. They lost Will Fuller, the best receiver. That defense isn't looking great at all now with the loss of J.J. Watt. I mean, that team is going to be pitiful, but I expect them to win a few games. Let's go over to NFL free agency. It was a hectic week in week one. The best free agent in a lot of people's minds was Trent Williams. He ends up signing with the 49ers. Do you like that pickup by San Francisco?
Yeah, I think they did need a little bit of help on the offensive line, and I think he's probably one of the best offensive linemen in free agency. So I thought it was a good pickup.
I would agree with you there. I think he is the best, or he was the best offensive tackle, and I'm glad he's out of Washington, especially what's happening over there. That definitely gives them more protection for Jimmy Garoppolo. They don't have a lot of weapons except for George Kittle, and they have Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, but I feel like that offensive tackle position is very necessary in the way the 49ers run their offense, and with them trying to pound the rock all the time and run the ball consistently, he'll be a great fit, and nice move by the Niners. Kenny Galladay recently just gets picked up by the Giants on a 4-year, $72 million contract. Or, yeah, I was thinking 4 years, $72 million. Did you expect the Giants to end up landing Kenny Galladay?
No, I really didn't think they would at all. I thought that really surprised me.
Yeah, that really surprised me as well. I knew they were interested in Kenny Galladay, but I didn't think they would actually be able to pull the trigger. And I know Kenny Galladay really wanted a contract, and in my opinion, I think he's worth that much. But to turn down offers with teams, well, I mean, the Baltimore Ravens didn't offer him a contract, but he did turn out offers like Cincinnati and Chicago. And now if you look at it, I think he is in a better situation with the Giants because the Bengals, they have Joe Burrow, yes, but that's about it. I mean, the Bears really have nothing. They have Allen Robinson. They don't know what they're going to do at the quarterback position. So, I mean, if you look at it, he probably made the better choice, but I felt like he could have signed with a better team, probably for less, but we'll see what ends up happening. Kenny Galladay is a very good receiver, so I think he'll have success of wherever he goes. Another free agent that ends up signing somewhere, AJ Green. You're a big Bengals fan, Michael. He ends up signing with the Cardinals. It looks like he's going to be the replacement for Larry Fitzgerald. How well do you think he does in his first year in the desert?
Well, I think if he could play more than 2 games, he'll have a decent season.
Do you think he'll have a good connection with Kyler Murray?
I think it's going to take a while, but I think eventually they could, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say he does as well. If you really look at it, the Cardinals are clearly trying to give weapons for Kyler Murray. I mean, they already have DeAndre Hopkins. Now they had AJ Green. That running game kind of scares me a little bit, but with the way they run that offense, they don't necessarily need a receiver or don't necessarily need a running back. That seems like the Cardinals, I think their odds went from 50-1 to 30-1, but yet they're still last in the NFC West, despite the 49ers missing the playoffs last season, and they still don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. So I feel like the Cardinals will end up making the playoffs this season, but they won't make much of a run because I still think there's a lot to be desired in that team. I mean, they lost Hassan Reddick. They lost Patrick Peterson. They lost a few players, but we'll see what happens. Kyler Murray, I think he's a great quarterback, and we'll see if he's worth it because if he doesn't get it done this year, the Cardinals could be looking for a new quarterback in the offseason. Speaking of Patrick Peterson, he lands in Minnesota on a 1-year deal. What do you think about that signing?
I thought it was a good signing for them. I mean, they did need help at corner, so.
Do you think he'll stay in Minnesota very long after that 1-year contract is over?
I think it depends on how well he does. I think he'll probably move after the season.
I would agree with you there. I mean, he is getting up there. He's his 11th season already, or maybe 12th season. Holy cow. But yeah, he's been in the league for a long time, and I felt like he was good in Arizona, but those last few years were kind of rough. And I mean, we'll see how successful he is in Minnesota, but I think you're right. I think he's more of a bridge corner to see what the Vikings can do because the last few years the Vikings have had really problems with their secondary. Bud Dupree leaves Pittsburgh to join Tennessee. What did you think about that pickup?
I thought it was a good sign for them. I think Bud Dupree is a little bit underrated. I mean, I still think there's better players out there, but I think he's not bad, and so I like the signing.
I know the Steelers are in desperate need of cash, and I don't think they could really afford Bud Dupree. But do you see a scenario where do you think the Steelers should have kept Bud Dupree and got rid of someone else?
I don't think so. No, I think, like I said, they were desperate for money, and I think that was a good decision for them.
I mean, not a lot of people talk about Bud Dupree, but he's a very good football player. And with the way he plays, I feel like the Pittsburgh Steelers really benefited off of him. And I think with the loss of Dupree, that's going to be huge for the Steelers. And if the Steelers can't get a guy if they can't replace Dupree, which is going to be the question, they're going to be in trouble, I feel like. And that Steelers team, I don't think they should have brought Big Ben. I understand he's getting out. He's Big Ben. He's won 2 Super Bowls. He's done a lot for the city and the team. But I felt like if you got rid of him, you could have kept guys like Bud Dupree and, finally got that quarterback to replace Big Ben. But we'll see what ends up happening. The Steelers have a very tough division now with the Browns and Ravens being elite. And, of course, the Bengals are going to be good as long as they have Joe Burrow. I'm looking at it. Andy Dalton signs with the Bears. Did that shock you? Because it kind of shocked me.
A little bit, but not as much as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I mean, I was hearing a lot about Andy Dalton possibly signing with the Bears, but I didn't actually think it would come to fruition because, again, I thought Dalton was just going to return to Dallas. However, he shocks a lot of people, goes to the Bears. It seems like he's going to be the starting quarterback there because Mitch Trubisky is out. Nick Foles, we don't know how well he is or how well he's going to return. To be honest with you, I don't think he succeeds in his first year in Chicago just because that place right now is a dumpster fire. Just let's be honest here. But I just don't think he's going to have much success just because of how bad the Bears are. I think they're worse off more than the Cowboys are, which is super crazy, but that's what I think about the Bears situation right now. Some other things happened recently. Of course, the NFL just got some new TV deals. They brought back Amazon, brought back Fox, brought back CBS. Was there any move that really shocked you? Like, did you see Amazon having the exclusive rights to Thursday Night Football?
No, I didn't really see that coming.
Well, I mean, Amazon was doing some of those games they were sharing with Fox. And if you have Amazon Prime, you would have saw the NFL games or the majority of them on. So I'm not super shocked, but I'm a little stunned that they get the full rights and Fox doesn't get anything there. So, and I think there's also going to be a doubleheader, more than one doubleheader on Monday Night Football. So that's going to be exciting. There's going to be a Saturday game before Christmas, which we've always had that, but I think there's going to now be 2. And I think they're going to there's something else they were going to add, and I can't remember, but it's going to be interesting. And they're all the way up to 2032. I think ABC now gets a Super Bowl, I think in 2026 and 2032 or something like that. So that's going to be interesting. Yeah, are you excited for any of these TV deals, Michael?
Yeah, I really am.
Yeah, I mean, what network do you think will benefit the most from this big contract the NFL just made?
Well, I think Amazon for one, just because they have exclusive rights, and then ABC I think is another one because they'll be hosting 2 Super Bowls. And
Well, I mean, ABC is a part of ESPN, so yeah, I can see what you're saying there. I think Monday Night Football is still going to be on ESPN, and I believe NBC still gets Monday Night Football. So there's not going to be a lot of changes, but there's going to be some interesting ones. Like I said, Amazon getting full rights. There's going to be more than one doubleheader of Monday Night Football. That's going to be exciting. I'm ready for that. Before I let you go, Michael, I know it's been a long day. Right now, what do you see right now do you think there's going to be any big moves before the draft starts?
I could see a couple teams trading up and stuff, trying to get a quarterback, but I mean nothing off the top. I'm sure it's going to happen. I just don't know who it's going to be.
You're right. I didn't think about the quarterback situation. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks still available. Does Teddy Bridgewater get traded out of Carolina? Does Derek Carr get traded out of Vegas? There's a lot of options right now that teams can go with, and I'm excited for it, and I'm ready for it to happen. So, all right, thanks for joining us, Michael, and have a wonderful night.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yep. All right, let's wrap up the show with the new segment, Questions from Instagram. Me and Michael will randomly take 3 questions from Instagram. And, of course, you can ask us a question on the Ask Me Anything icon. We'll put that up every Wednesday on our Instagram story. However, Michael is not able to participate in this segment, so I'll just be doing it. But, again, don't forget to check that out. Again, and thanks for all the people. Thanks for all the people that asked for question, and we hope that you get the answer you were looking for. First, the question actually comes from Miss Anna Robinson, and she asked, Who do you have winning the bracket and why? Well, I first was going to go Gonzaga, then I changed my mind to Baylor. Of course, I think Gonzaga and Baylor are the two best teams and pretty much the cream of the crop. Now, I know Gonzaga's the reason why I didn't pick Gonzaga was because I got a little scared of the BYU game where they struggled a little bit and they had to come back to win the game. So I just decided to go with Baylor. It was very tough, but I have Gonzaga at least going to the Final Four. And if you don't know a whole lot about brackets, I would have you should have probably picked one of the top seeds. But I picked Baylor just because I feel like they are the second best team just below Gonzaga, and I feel like there's a chance Gonzaga could get upset. But Gonzaga's really good, so maybe not. All right, the second question comes from Rob PTRS44. His question is, do you think with UFC having fans at full capacity that encourages other sporting leagues to do that as well? Well, I think it will, but I think it really depends on how well it goes. If there are no bumps in the road, I could see a lot more sporting leagues doing that. And you can already see a bunch of leagues are now going from limited capacity to half capacity. And I feel like pretty soon teams in California will be able to have fans. So that's always a great, exciting time. And I think within about a few months, we'll have fans at full capacity because, again, you look at the UFC, they're going to have fans at full capacity at UFC 261. And so are the Texas Rangers on opening day. So that's really exciting. I'm very excited to do that. And again, if there are no bumps in the road, I could see a lot more sporting leagues do that. Again, thanks for asking the questions. And the last one comes from John Doe 32. Who is your favorite NBA player as a kid and why? Well, my first ever player that I ever saw play in the NBA was Tim Duncan, and he was my favorite player for a long time. He still is. I still think he's the greatest power forward of all time. Now I like Kawhi Leonard because Tim Duncan's retired. And when Tim Duncan was about to retire, I started liking Kawhi as my favorite player. But yeah, Tim Duncan is the reason why I watched the NBA, why I got into it. So again, thanks for asking that question. All right, that wraps up this show. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening to the Sports Town Podcast, or the STP Pod for short. If you want to check out more videos of the Sports Town Podcast, click on the left. If you want to subscribe to the channel, click on the right.